First of all, do you want to hear the Chinese first or the English translation? So we can rotate. Yeah,
I want to hear you read because I want to hear what you do syntactically.
Right, but on the other hand, some people want to understand the meaning first and then pay more attention to the sound. So we can try both ways. Right? So by the end of the evening, after all these translation reading, I mean, the things we didn't talk about is the people who bridged the two did a lot of work. So this poem I'm reading has been translated by multiple poets themselves. First poem has been translated by Armenian poets, Arpan Greener, and as well as a New York poet, Bob Holman. So you will hear two translations of the same little poem. Here's the Chinese. Ready? Registered. Now you're hearing Chinese. 女书贯穿一致，你惜一身黑衣，偏不甘寂寞，从深沉的河底醒来。很久很久以来，我们一直年轻，也一直惦记着你。沿着雪花飞扬的街巷，叫卖热包子和冻硬的稀粥。很久很久以来，我们只专心地生一个孩子，而且面对没有路障的广场，大动肝火。这里应该长树，应该生风。很久很久以来，我们蹲在园子里吸烟，坐在屋子里谈话，议论着你的身世，看着你再一次紧握你那墨色的仙指。
First translation is by Arpan Grenier, entitled Female Codon. Uniform, from head to toe, you in black, wary of the barren, rise from the bottomless core of your flow for a long, long time. We, always young and always worried about you running among the snow, flakes in the street, hawking steaming dumplings and frozen porridge for a long, long time. Absorbed in bearing the single child bawling at the emptied square, no roadblock, here trees should rise, here wind should for a long, long time. Squatting in the garden, smoking, then sat inside, talking about your lineage and ordinance, watching your slender tips once more soaked in ink. Same original, different interpretation. This one comes with the pronunciation 语书 of the Chinese, but it's phoneticized, so that would be titled parenthetically female script. All in black, halo to soul, but don't leave me alone. Wake me up, oh, from riverbed for a long, long time. Forever young, us, forever worried, we, or remember you, running snowflake streets, hawking hot bao dumplings, juk soup, get it, while it's frozen for a long, long time. Obsessed one child birth, bawling at square of no one, not even a roadblock. There should be trees, should have wind for a long, long time. Smoking in the garden, talking in no particular room, yak it up about ancestors, watch you from riverbed, dip your finger, black ink, slender.
Quite different translation. For those of you in the poetry, writing poetry, you know Bob Holman is very much of a slam poet, oral poetry, and he's one of the Nuyorican Cafe's founder. So his poetry has clearly a sound structure to it. So interesting, and I think
should have tried a slam affect.
Exactly.
It might have.
Yeah. Next time when you see him, you can ask him to read the translation. So the next one is a poem in 3 sections. Maybe we'll read section by section. This poem is translated by a professor in University of Hawaii. Herself is a poet as well, Susan Schatz. I think she visited you guys. Or
No, she was in Kansas though, but I found out the day of the reading.
I see. So she just has a tour with her book, and she's editing a poetry journal called Team Fish. So we started collaborating on these translations. The next poem is very much of a New York poem here. 渔人与作家，这条路我总走错，出地铁往西就误入东方的中国城。黑咖啡、酸辣汤，餐桌花瓶里也埋着阵鱼的冰，混淆的汤水，鲜花与鱼腥。只有我一个茶客，明亮的地板，手绘彩漆，方桌，书没人翻动，每人都可以是一部。今天钓上来的鱼，昨天早已制过标本，装了镜框，钉上墙。河依然从窗外流过，桅杆竖立在巨型家具店后面，与我相隔源源不断的街。龙骨悬空，空为某种头上的景致。没见过渔人或者作家，也许他们病了，也许他们已经出城。诗流于这混杂的日常，清洁如旧的布置，走进来的都是过路人，不着急的吐纳。安然已经美丽，即便没有奇花、香花，诗是城，只是这条路总错，不断游移的坐标像沙漠几何。渔人每10年走出来一次，用鱼竿换佐料、粮米和书。这叠急需的青菜证明他们回来了，拎一小串诗。
Anglers and Writers, Hudson Street. 1. Always get the way wrong. Exiting the subway to the west, end up in Chinatown to the east, black coffee, hot and sour soup, iced fish, ice-filled flower vase on the table, blurry liquid, fresh flowers, fish. I'm the only one for tea, lacquer table, shiny wood floor. No one ever rifles the pages here. Everyone can be a book. Today's catch, yesterday's cast, hangs framed on the wall. The Hudson flows beyond the window, masts erect, behind the furniture depot, past the street's incessant traffic, a boat's hull, suspended in air, empty as a mood. I've never seen an angler or a writer here. Perhaps they're sick or left the city. Poetry blurs onto the blurred routine, old yet clean. Passers-by walk in, breathe easily. At ease is already beautiful. Even without the painted flowers, fragrant flowers, poetry is a city. But this is the wrong way. Maps like moving dunes, a desert river which emerges every 10 years with anglers exchange dried fish for spices, grains, and books. This dish of urgent greens proves they've returned with their string of small poems.
So this group of poems I wrote in a restaurant on Hudson Street called Anglers and Writers, and it's almost like a doom. Every time I wrote about the place, it disappeared. So now the restaurant is not there, but the poem is here. So make me even more anxious to write everything I saw because things change. But once it's written, at least we have something about this beautiful coffee place, coffee restaurant, pie, homemade pie is beautiful. And also the last reference talking about the anglers inside desert. It's true, it's in Xinjiang, there's anglers living in the desert. Because there are desert rivers inside the desert, so they follow where the river flows. And every 10 years happen to be the river flow to the city, they will come out with their dried fish, and they still live like that. So give me a sense of urgency about poetry. It seems to be living in the same kind of fringe, follow the desert river of whatever left the space of poetry. But anyway, interpretation is not interesting, but that's just the poems. Okay, here we go again, section 2. 还是先确定自我的身份，生产者、消费者兼顾。出海时你看见什么？看不见鱼，上钩的是鱼死的过程，非常难过，却出神张着嘴，因为你不可能控制两极化病。船板咯吱咯吱在脚下挣扎，时刻准备离你而去。除了站着小心垂下这偶然一线，你只能高举双手，希望，更像祈祷，愿你为我殷勤的姿态寻情。这难道不如一次婚约？茫茫复茫茫，丢个眼波给过路的鱼，你和他一口把月亮咬住，咬紧不放，海浪翻身，连太阳也一起抓落。退潮时，你们对坐桌旁，不经意地抛开彼此，把每根神经从头嚼到尾，还有心肝和不再看见的眼珠，听得见胃肠叽咕，直到彼此全部吃掉，首尾嵌合。每次下网都找不到水，因为阅历的关系。每条鱼布满刺，非出血才香。鱼汤融入所有的想象，月光、雪光，尝一口，尝一口，你就数得出月亮下所有的浪。
2. First, fix your identity, whether producer, consumer, or both. What do you see out on the sea? You don't see fish. Who dies on the hook, mouth hinged, wide in a desperate process? You can't control the Arctic melting. Boat's wooden deck squeaks, struggles, threatens to leave you behind. You stand carefully, let fall. This accidental thread pressing palms together, more in prayer than in hope. Please do sacrifice yourself for my ardent pose. It's not unlike a marriage contract, this sense of being out to sea, blind, throwing glances to passing fish. You and he both bite down on the moon, refuse to let go as waves turn to drag down the sun. At low tide, you sit across the table, heartlessly, dissecting each other, chewing every nerve from end to end, heart, liver, and eyes that no longer see. The guts rumble, herd, until all is eaten and laid from head to tail. Not every net finds water in the lunar calendar. Every fish has bones, delicious when it bleeds. Fish soup dissolves the imagination, its moonlight, bloodlight, the one taste that enables you to count each and every wave beneath the moon.
在我们的推断里，生活曾经淳朴，渔人与作家，这个海滨城市真正需要的职业。可眼下打鱼不如卖鱼，不如端上桌面的小小卖弄，一眼便认出这个季节的流行。它曾经让人们在水边满足，从而跟它进入天堂。现在地上的我，一边没水，一边没顶，闪光发亮，无穷尽计算，声嘶力竭之后，把心抛向何方？真的钓上什么就是什么。鱼，我。坐在酒吧前的俏女人过来问我，是不是演电影的女侠，在北京砖墙大院铁灰屋顶上飞奔。是啊，梦的布景路过这河岸飞雪的小饭馆，是谁？曾经是谁？他于盘子里。不管是谁，捕捉住才是你的，写下才活过。只是玻璃的海里盛不下你。颂扬它不如描述这把刀，先问问彼此的身份。炒作之后，依旧蒙着哪处的风沙，色味真的永不减退。那些辨不清的航线水情，转眼间是你和他仇敌、兄弟、母女，悬在高处墙上，眼神离散。桌子上最后的雪下个不停，串串黑脚印，向东向西，将通向那里的路一再掩埋。
3. The implication is life was once honest. Anglers and riders, professions this city needs. Yet now the catching of fish is no match for selling them, or the little show-off served on the table. One look captures the season's fashion. He once satisfied those on the water's edge who followed him to heaven. Now I'm caught between drought and flood, between light and its reflection, calculation shouting myself hoarse, yet not knowing where to cast the heart. Are we really whatever is caught up, fish, I? The pretty woman at the bar comes to ask if I'm the gongfu heroine of the movie, galloping over Beijing's grey roofs and walled yards. Sure, this small restaurant beside the river under the drifting snow passes for a dream stage. Who is it? Was it him? The fish in the dish? No matter what it is, when it's caught, it's yours. Writing is living. But the glass sea doesn't make you content. Praising him proves no better than describing the knife. First ask the identity of each. After flaying, the fish is still covered with sand, and from where? The flavor doesn't fade? These hidden sea routes make him your enemy, your brother, mother, daughters, hanging on the wall, expressions blank. On the table, the last of the snow falls constantly, where black footprints again bury both ways, east and west, the way leads there.
Pretty good translation.
Yeah, I like it.
A good point.
Yeah.
So here's a little poem. It's I chose it because I think we are going to have collaboration from the nature or atmosphere, but not yet. Yeah. But in this, so now it's more like a prayer. 雨滴，迎着风走不难，只要克服阻力；顺着风行也不难，只需依从惯性。雨滴悬至空间，往复不已。风从六面吹来，风从六面吹来，伞折了筋骨，变作雨的气。It's translated by Leonard Schwartz.
Who's that guy? That's our guy. A raindrop. It's not difficult to go against the wind, just overcome the resistance. It's not difficult to go with the wind either, merely obey inertia. A raindrop suspended in space winds back and forth. The winds come from 6 directions. Winds come from 6 directions. The fractured bones of an umbrella become a flag, stark banner of the rain. Do you want me to do English first next time? And let's see, that's 97? No, mine would be 98.
97. So your Chinese is getting improved a little bit? Okay.
Okay. So should I sections or the whole?
Yeah, sections.
Okay, doors after Dakuni. 1. The door opens to a certain flow, exposing the scent of spring peach, our breath already touched by new shades of green, temptation tender as water. As we watch, the season's contrasting colors begin to match. Light plays at the open door, albeit sincerely, bearing a toothy grin, magnolia petals between its lips. These flowers are not gaudy, but pure. Words come slowly. So many pen strokes oblige the door to open. This is not progress, linear or three-dimensional. A color-denied surface cannot step outside its definition.
So I don't know how many of you know the Kuning's door series. It's a series of painting he did, I think in the 60s, living on a friend's house, and have this. They just finished the renovation. There's like a 5, 6, 7, 8 doors replaced, piled up there. So he just used the door to start painting on it, and those painting are. Those painting he just gave it away to different friends and sold separately. Whatever the situation is, they never been together. But about 10 years ago, maybe even early, when the museum biannual exhibition, one of the things they did is to get all the doors back, borrowed and rented, put them in one single room of these big panel of doors. It was just incredible experience. You walk into this little gallery separate from the main hall, has this gigantic woman staring at you, and this beautiful, beautiful coloration. I know a lot of women found his painting unappealing, but I kind of really feel sensual about it. It was really powerful, angry, and joyful flash. It's beautiful. Anyway, so the reason I'm mentioning it is because the Chinese title is woman, so the translator decided to make it into door. Susan Schultz asked her, maybe she don't like the kuning. I don't know why she did that. But 女人，门敞开为某种流动，为裸露春的桃花。呼吸里已抹上一层新绿，诱惑嫩的出水。对比强烈的季节，在审视下愈加般配。光深入敞开的门戏耍，却很真挚，有皮肉奇笑的形象，呲玉兰花瓣样的牙齿。事实上，花朵大多纯色，并不花哨。词迟迟不到，门敞开是因为笔触拥挤。这不是一种线性或立体的进步，颜色被它的外表一再否认，卖不出定义。And Chinese words for flower has very negative connotation of impure, mixed, beyond flower.
So the magnolia petals is between its lips, maybe? Yeah, try to pull it out of it. Okay, so 2. And for those tracking, remember this is of course not a translation of what you just heard. This is a premonition of what you will hear, an echo before the sound. 2. Outside the door, the street, an old newspaper, discount fashions, beauty competitions, new houses for sale. Word faces word blankly, an old magazine refuses resurrection. At the splendid fruit stand on the street, I patiently seek the pear you cut open and the orders you stashed in the cellar, rows of green, orange, cherry red. Shift your focus from the door onto the street, its pedestrian's naked cognition puts on layers of clothing, gets hold of this reality.
门的外面是街和过时的每日新闻，时装减价，比美大奖，新物出售，词与词面面相觑，无法从旧画报上复活。在街边炫耀铺陈的水果摊上，我苦苦寻找那只被你切破的梨和窖藏的秩序。行列被色块填满，绿苹果、橙橘、红樱桃。视线的焦点从门移到街，以及街上行人，获得的不仅仅是对事实的把握，本来面目的认知，穿起层次很多的衣服。
3. I forgot I was watching water flow inside the picture frame. Consciousness darts as if pleasant and polygon-shaped, shyly swells into another dimension. The door breaks through this plane. Heat, unstopped by fabric, rises from the crotch. What was overturned? What reborn? Swollen belly and lips push into the door's deep soil. No one escapes the flesh from all sides. I can't breathe. I must draw a new dimension for the woman so she can bloom or bear fruit, liberated from the semantics of the pornographic flower.
我忘记我是在画框里看水流，意识躲躲闪闪，仿佛一团多边形的快感，羞怯地涌入另一位空间，门终于突破平面。衣褶里藏不住的燥热自腹股沟间勃起，有什么被颠覆，有什么新生。肥肿的胸腹和船员用力栽入门的深处。没有人能逃出这四面林立的肉身，我无法呼吸，必须为花与女人勾绘新的空位，以便盛开或结果，并且从混杂异变、色情、欺骗的语境中挣脱。That's all I have for you.
What about at least a poem or two from the other anthology? We'll go without the English sounding.
Yeah, I have two books since this translation been done, but they are not being translated. But since you are all quick learners, borderline genius, so because you choose to come here, spend even lovely Friday evening here, so they must be has special talent. Here is something in Chinese for you. So see if you can hear make sense of it. It's a little poem I wrote for my daughter when she was very, very small. So she's trying to learn Chinese and English together and trying to understand the tonalities, the relationship between the two languages. So it's interesting. See if you can hear it. 四声太难了，歌唱一样的说话，像书上的小雨点，沙沙沙，小青蛙呱呱呱。远处的雪沾着窗玻璃呲牙笑，我的太阳在树枝上一上一下荡秋千。忽闪翅膀，汪汪汪，为什么总戴着帽子？小狮子金黄的卷毛。狗狗，赏声正确，而且加了重音。妈妈是什么字母？是什么字母？宝宝，不嗷宝，不嗷宝，和爸爸，不啊爸。不啊爸，是不字母表上第二个字母。妈妈比较复杂，么啊妈，么啊妈，在中间偏后的位置。两扇走进走出的门，藏起来吃也吃不完的米，演不完的节目，不能出的名，挣不出的命。宝宝骑上跑的马，呱嗒呱嗒。地上蚂蚁忙个不停。妈妈美，妈妈秘密，妈妈默默，母牛母母，妈妈还是个问题的妈。第一个字母是啊，是爱也是安，最容易也最难。猫猫去哪里了？猫猫老了，病了，睡觉不行，不回家了。猫猫去哪里了？不在了，死了。猫猫去哪里了？对不对？妈妈和猫猫起同一个字母。猫猫去哪里了？So here is another book. You should learn Chinese, right? So that you can read my poetry. So this is I'm sure Professor Sterling will tell you the significance of a Chinese classical form of poetry of the 乐府, based on a form of 乐府 poetry and its repetitions and that's potentially Han 乐府. It's a period of China in Han Dynasty about 200 AD. Their collection of folk songs, so they have a lot of folk song style poems. And I just modeled on one of their forms and then put in my own syntax and vocabularies. Here is a mockery of the central the CCTV, Chinese central Chinese television. So it's most propaganda official news media. So when CCTV has their news broadcasting, every TV channel has to stop every program. Everybody from 7 to 8 is the CCTV hour. Every channel in the province has to show the same thing. So I was visiting China, sitting in my parents' apartment in Beijing, so watching this CCTV, and then I realized when I come to US on airport and the CNN, a lot of times they show CCTV's news as well and commenting on it. So anyway, so there's a CCTV. 天那么冷，蟋蟀的长脚抖抖的颤动，从西边看抖抖，从东边看也抖抖，北边看抖抖，南边看抖抖，CNN上看还抖抖。有没有道理不是我们的问题。这个城市尘土那么厚，从西边看蒙蒙，从东边看也蒙蒙，北边看蒙蒙，南边看蒙蒙。CNN上看还蒙蒙。一枚刺眼的钻石别针插在灰色中山装上，那么多扒墙角的躲在城根下。从西边看心虚，从东边看也心虚，北边看心虚，南边看心虚，CNN上看还心虚。德性不是叫卖人的招牌，大猪小猪落算盘，商人富左边算积极，东边算积，西边算积极，东边算积极，北边算积极，南边算积极。CNN上还积极，大米和自行车轮子与烟花比美，地上的意思重于天上的意思。西边颠重重，东边颠也重重，北边重重，南边重重，CNN颠还重重。把窗户挪开也找不到牢靠的口实。水立方纺织未来的梦，西边蓝蓝，东边也蓝蓝，北边蓝蓝，南边蓝蓝，CNN上更蓝蓝。上下一条口舌，集体大观园。传花的鼓点那么紧凑，西边咚咚，东边也咚咚，北边咚咚，南边咚咚，CNN上更咚咚，枪。Okay. This book is about Beijing, disappearing Beijing. So, any questions?
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
we can open up for a little discussion. So.
Yeah, I was curious. I guess I have two questions. One, in that last one you just read, what is it that you? I kept noticing you would repeat the same sound. What is that?
Yeah, I mean it's the original poem. It's 乐府 poem. It's a sing by people working. It's workman's song. So there are a lot of repetitions, and the original song is about. I think it's describing women picking lotus seeds. So they were talking about picking lotus seeds, and you see the fish swimming on the left, on the east, on the right, on the left, but different directions of the fish swimming. You remember, 鱼戏连夜东，鱼戏连夜西，鱼戏连夜北，鱼戏连夜南. So it's a repetition and of a work song of repeated people was speaking, repeated working, and then while they're singing. So I found it's very interesting. Sometimes play with the folk song form and add it almost writing to a lyric already, not writing lyric to a melody already. So for those things was mockery of Chinese CCTV, and also the not quite. I mean, it's more than just mockery. Talking about the contemporary Chinese mentalities and the state, as well as the ordinary citizens regarding the state, almost feels like here is this authority, and then we're living a little life under its shadow. The best thing we spend all our energy trying to, almost like a slave mentality, to take something away from the state and sabotage as long as we're not being discovered, that type of thing, rather than, okay, this is our country, which is ironic because in communist states, you're supposed to be, everybody is the owner of the states, everybody's supposed to take responsibilities, but just the opposite because it's, I don't know how to explain the poem in prose form, but it's interesting to see that Beijing, the CCTV was designed, it's an odd-shaped building designed by a modern architect. Beijing is this ancient city, it's gray dust and gray brick, and someone visited Beijing who testified to it. It was really kind of mismatch of all these modern shining building and for the Olympic game, you see Beijing was in giant new stadium and swimming stadium, and mismatching with the landscape of how people actually living. So all that things played into that little poem. Make me wonder where is this clearly the culture to a point that its tradition is so obvious and so quick, and it seems analyzing it theoretically, trying to chart a way for Chinese modernization or capitalist society is difficult, but at least a poet can do is to capture it. That's what at least this book is trying to synthesize what's there and what's in the past in my personal memory, as well as memorized in city design and architect. And the last part of the book is collection of childhood children's song, because Beijing city used to have this hutong style, which has courtyard, and then outside the courtyard, people live in small lanes that traffic don't go through, and then you have major avenues. So the city was not designed for automobiles, and for the sake of modernization, especially for the Olympic game, the structure was completely destroyed. With right now few tourist spots saved. The Forbidden City used to be the hot palace, few parks, but the overall structure is gone. Big avenue was built for automobiles, and then these songs are important for me. These folk songs are important for me is because they are created in the hutong style architect. They're linked. The poetry, words, and children's playing is linked to the living surroundings. Now that everybody is living, when they grow up, the parents seldom home, and your playmates is 20, 30, 100 other kids living in the same hutong, and there's no traffic, so people playing in and out of each other's home and on the small street with no toys, but you have a lot of games with each other's body, and you push each other's and hide and seek, all these things of playing very much of a lifestyle, and then those songs are created for those games. And now the children don't play like that because they don't live in a structure like that. Now they live in high risings and apartment. They seldom know their neighbor. And like all modern kids, they have computer games. So when they play together, it's everybody having their own computer game. And there, people in China are more gay, with better connection or little gadgets. They have more gadgets than they do. And when I bring out my cell phone, you still use that stuff. And, and so when the kids are playing, they are side by side doing the computer games, and they're playing with kids. I mean, you know all that. So, so these sounds are going to be disappearing. So I feel like the more I'm thinking about my poetry, more like I'm like a what do you people collecting garbage of discarded things, and like that. And things are precious to me, but people are just.
What is like a salvager?
Salvager.
That's not the word. That's not the word.
Preservation.
Salvage. What is it?
Yeah.
Preserving.
Yeah.
No.
But
Yeah.
like someone who salvages.
Yeah,
refuse.
I mean, a lot of when the Beijing city was destroyed, filmmakers, artists did a lot of trying to capture capture the demolition. They do artwork on the wall that beautiful buildings, and the police already wrote down, destroyed. So they would photograph it, and police don't like it, but they do that anyway. So they happen not just in Beijing, but Beijing is one of the places that suffered most because of Olympic game. Yeah.
So that the sounds that you're talking about in the poems, they are kind of vestiges. It's kind of like the sound of a lost time, right? And so the content of the poem is sort of talking about contemporary society, but the aural structure of the poem this kind of a ghost structure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of invokes this lost past. So this kind of tension, would you say, between the kind of, you know, modern content that you're talking about with the structure that mimics an older architecture, both sonic architecture, but you're talking about actual architecture.
Right, and I would say not ghost, I would say echoing of existence that happened before, and
I forget you're a scientist. Ghosts. Don't worry.
no, ghosts has a different connotations for me. But mainly here, I like that, borrow the sonic structure and then echoing with today's activity. The original poem, I don't know how in Han Dynasty how that was sing. They may have many different stanzas, but the collected one in Han Yuefu is only one stanza. And here, I mean, as you know, modern life is multitude. We never satisfied with one, so we have multitude stanzas built on it. I was just laughing as I reading. Why you need to write so many? But I don't know. That's a bigger question. But interesting thing is the preservation effort in Beijing is mainly in the artifacts of actual materials, objects, the walls, the buildings, the bricks, the doors, and a lot of them carried all the way to New York, auctioned it off on the old doorways and the steps that people used to work on, but now it's completely just going to be demolished. So people salvaged it and sell it on the market, filmmakers recording it. But then I just realized all these sounds, another thing is going to lose because of the architect or the city design. Architect is probably the wrong word. City design where make these sounds possible is disappearing. These sounds going to be fading away as well. So, as someone who is paying attention to heritage of words, it's almost like imperative. I better write it down now. So that's the motivation there. It's a long-winded way of answering the question. But any other people, any other thoughts?
You know, as you think of,
yeah,
go ahead.
Could you talk about the poem that you said that you wrote for your daughter? How she was trying to learn Chinese and English at the same time?
Yeah, that's one is also playing on the sound. She was actually the Bob Holman did the translation, and I didn't bring. It's not in the published form yet. Mainly is you know the last part of it is constantly repeated, like children. Her cats that died, and she keep on asking me, "Where's the cat? Where's the cat?" So I will try to come up with answers, but none of the answer is satisfying her. She remains questioning. And then the first part of it is talking about she's asking a cute question, asking what's the letter of mom, and because she's learning English letters. So I'm trying to explaining the mom's complicated role, and which inevitably, hopefully she will be one day. So just playing on the phonetic sounds of M. And as you know, Chinese language is not phonetically spelled with letters, but because she's learning phonetic in English, so she's so what's the mom's letter? So I'm trying to explain using different play, and of course I carried away by my own feminist misgivings of a woman's life, and so played with it a little bit. So was that poem, yeah, and which in Chinese poetry is a woman's voice is always very weak and seldomly recorded, and it's. I don't want to get into it because this book was.
We have read your short essay on the subject somewhat in Arthur Z's
collection.
anthology.
Yeah,
right.
so we have a record of some of your thoughts on
Yeah,
that.
and so actually the Chinese version of it is in this book because my take, I'm sure people, like everything I wrote, people probably won't agree with me because I'm not doing a scholarly writing. Talking about Chinese women's tradition might be in folk songs, might be in folk stories, because folk songs and folk stories, a woman now at least participate in passing it on, teaching it. Probably a lot of them participate in the creation of it. So that's one more reason I collect all these children's songs as a way of nourish my own poetry. So that's.
On that last point, maybe because we are clearly kind of out of time, perhaps we've already been going for an hour, but the first poem, two different translations, because there's something about what 女书 means in Chinese, why they had two different interpretations, and maybe something about, or you can't say this, you are being recorded, but which one you like for for what reason? Do you have a preference about? Let's just keep it at the title. How do the two very different titles affect you? As the writer, do you like both of them?
The story behind 女书, it's not. I'm not that inventive like Zhang's, and I'm like modern artists tend to use existing material, just rotate it differently. The 女书 is a script of a woman way of writing discovered in the late 70s, early 80s. A script used a Chinese character, but it's not based on the Chinese character, but not exactly the same character. They transformed it, simplified it, used by rural women in the South for at least 800 years. The earliest collection is from Song Dynasty, and uneducated women, rural family, they are not allowed to go to school, but they want to communicate among themselves, complaining about their boyfriends, husbands, their fathers, their mothers, and worrying about their future. So there's a secret code they use, and only women in that area know how to write it. And men know the existence of that, but they think, oh, it's a woman's domain. So it's part of the script was invented to prevent the man's eyes to see it. So it's mother teaching daughters, and daughter would teach among the girlfriends before marriage. They usually use this to communicate about their various fears, sometimes about hairstyles, and the boy is cute, and things like that. So there are collections. It's more personal diary type of thing, private letters, and also sometimes abused wife would write it out and to ask for help. And the last person who know how to write 女书 is already dead, I think, because at that time women is excluded from school. So the script has a need to exist. Now I think someone collected it, published the book, and there's a bunch of women scholars in Taiwan studied it, and has a beautiful volume. And I think in New York, a public library 1 year had an exhibition of those collected articles about 女书. So I'm kind of borrowed it, wasn't talking about women's scripts anyway, in literal sense, but kind of meditated on women's conditions in an abstract way. And also I was still very young as a poet at that time, so I don't know. I have lots of things to say, but I don't know how to say it. So I ended up in a poem. 10 years later, I look at the little poem. Somehow, even though I like it. I still like it because it has something kind of unique in terms of the structure, in terms of its composition, without its freshness to it. And so So the Armenian poets I met in a conference, she's very much a gung-ho, a feminist. She said, yeah, I want to have this poem. And she was asking me what poem I was doing. So she is more interested in the phenomenon of Yushu, of female codes. And Bob Holman translation come many years later. And it's here is a man poet trying to get into the secret of women's scripts. So, I like both translation. I thought it's neat, and that I'm kind of really flattered of someone important American poet who would really spend time translating, and he don't want me to change. He liked that poem so much. Don't change it if you don't want it. So don't include it in your book, but don't change it. I like it. So I was ended up. Chris is Medicine. The publisher was very sure-eyed. He wanted to have both there. So I ended up we have both in that book. That's the story behind female scripts. And codon obviously is borrowed words from science. Code in DNAs and RNAs to code its codons. So,
All right, well, thank you so much.